and see what happens. Okay, I think we are recording. So,
All right.
folks, technical difficulties. I do not know why that occasionally Skype drops my calls. So this will be a two-part video. So for those of you who, for whatever reason, didn't watch part one, I am here with Kristi DeMeester, author, and we were talking about her newest book, Such a Pretty Smile.
Yes.
And we were talking about Daniel.
Yes.
We're just going to jump right back into what we were talking about.
Perfect.
Now, one of the things I think that makes him more of an asshole than he already is, if that's the way we're going to put it, is the fact of Caroline's father.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she doesn't just want him to show and potentially sell this statue because she wants to show and potentially show this statue. She needs the money for her dying father.
Right.
So it would be bad enough if he was just an ass who didn't want to be overshadowed by her. But he knows that she needs this money and still does what he does.
Right. Yeah. And I remember having a conversation with my agent when we were going through this particular portion of the book of, because she needed a motivation for selling this, because she had been out of the game. She was focused on caring for her father, like you said. And I was like, I need to give her motivation. And if that motivation, if she's been out of work and she needs the money, what does that mean if Daniel doesn't do it? Because that takes things up just such a higher notch of, if it's just, she's just trying to sell it for some extra, like you said, that's different. But the fact that she desperately needs it, and he understands and he knows that she has chosen this specific hospice care for a specific reason, and that she has been struggling and she's put everything in her life on hold in the efforts to help with her dad. What does that mean for their relationship? And I went and I said, I hate that he's doing this, but I understand why, because I need that relationship to crumble for her to get to this next place. And so I remember writing those scenes, and it was like ripping my heart. I was incredibly upset, because just to recognize that this is probably not unheard of for one person to do to another, even if they claim that they love each other.
Yeah.
That kind of betrayal. It was a difficult couple of scenes to get through, just to say, okay, I'm about to really make some nasty interactions happen. But it had to happen in order for her to get to where she needed to be, ultimately.
I was just waiting with bated breath for that scene that when she calls his boss,
Mm-hmm.
whatever she is. I was like, I know she's going to do it. I just can't. I I dread it when she hears what I know has happened, but I'm looking forward to it so she can have that confrontation
Right.
with
Right.
Daniel.
Yeah.
So the other main, so Caroline's one main character, Lila,
Lila.
the proper pronunciation, is our other main character, and she has a horrible friend.
She does.
And again, since I've never been a 13-year-old girl, is this somewhat typical? This friendship?
So I and this is where, again, I think there was a little bit of contention, where I had a number of readers who were like, 13-year-old girls don't act like this. And I went, well, I was a 13-year-old girl. And I did act like this, where I did really stupid things and was super unnecessarily catty and bitchy to people for no reason other than my own insecurities. And then I was an English teacher, a high school English teacher, for 13 years. And so I will say, I think that friendships among girls particularly have gotten a lot better I think, in a more modern standpoint. But Macy is very much grounded in girls that I knew, girls that I was friends with, girls that I taught. And she was, very much the embodiment of also another, like Daniel, a girl who's never been told no.
Yeah.
And who, unfortunately, because she has never been told no, bites off a little more than she can chew. And then when she encounters those, big situations and the realities of the world that she thinks is what she wants, it's not quite what she wants. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Anything, last words you want to tell people about Such a Pretty Smile besides go out, pick it up, and read it?
I will say that it is definitely one of those books where I feel that it's multifaceted. And so I think a lot of horror or a lot of genre readers may or may not immediately get into the horror component of it. They may feel like, oh, this is more thriller, oh, this is more crime. I promise you that it's in there. And so you just have to give it a little bit of time to kind of get into the meat of that craziness. And so other than that, please, if you go grab it, borrow it from a library, read it. If you like it, say something nice. It does everything in the world for writers in order to be able to continue to do what we do, because second books are based on sales of first books.
Well, as I said, I will be recording a review for it.
Oh, thank you.
And I will be telling people I read it in one day. It was very compelling.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right, before we get to the main event, just what about you? What are your reading habits? Are there any authors you're reading currently, or movies or TV shows that you're watching?
Yes. So I am currently in the process of, unfortunately, my pleasure reading has been somewhat, I say unfortunately, that's not true, but been somewhat delayed. I'm writing an introduction for a very good friend for his forthcoming short story collection. I'm reading another short story collection, The Blurb. But I have recently been downloading, and I am very excited. I have been circling back and reading a lot of things that have been on my list for a long time that I've just not been able to get to in quite some time. And so here recently, I actually just downloaded Eric LaRocca's new novella, You've Lost a Lot of Blood, because I enjoyed
Things have gotten worse
since we last spoke. Thank you so
Yes.
much. I was completely blanking. I really enjoyed that.
Well, he's got a thing with long titles.
Which I am completely fine with. It was just like a complete brain freeze there for a second. And then I just recently read This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno, which I loved so much because of the strangeness and the weirdness and the unexplained. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like it when things don't make sense. I love it. When I'm going, if you can plot me down in a world where I'm looking around going, what the fuck is going on? I love it more than anything. I've also just I've started reading, but I haven't finished The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan, and Waif by Samantha Kolesnik, which is amazing. I love it so much. It's so good. Crazy. Love, 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 love. And so I've also recently just gotten back into some old school Poppy Z. Bright with Lost Souls, and I know Billy Martin now, but I just really wanted some intense kind of horror fiction, and so that's where I've been lately. And I'm hoping to get back into a little bit more. I have a TBR pile. Everyone does, just stacked. So
mine is literally, and not even counting digital stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just physical books, literally over 800 books.
Oh my god. You win. That's way more than I have.
Because I have an addiction.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a bunch of shelves that are completely full, and now I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 piles.
Oh my gosh.
Of books. that just keep getting high. They're very precarious. They're getting higher, and people just keep putting stuff out. I just bought the new Sarah Pinborough.
Oh yeah.
Insomnia.
I gotta get that.
And I can't just buy one. I can't order just one thing.
No.
That's just
crazy.
You're
paying the shipping anyway. You may as
well. I have Prime. I don't pay.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, if I do order directly from a publisher, yes, if you're paying shipping anyway, throw some more books in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a list. I don't know if you're familiar with Unnerving's Rewind or Die series.
I am not.
I say they're like B movie novellas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple short story collections in there. And there's, let's see, 33 of them. And I had a list of all of them, and every time I would order something from Amazon, I would just add the next Rewind or Die book.
Yeah.
And I actually just got the 33rd one. But yeah, right before I read Such a Pretty Smile, I read one by Nico Bell called Food Fright.
Yeah.
And I love this kind of silly stuff. It's about killer food.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
It's got witches, it's got female bullies, and it's got a croissant that kills someone.
That's amazing.
love their Rewind or Die series so far, and it's had things. Again, killer food. There's been killer bugs. V. Castro. I just read hers. Yeah. Hairspray and Switchblades with a stripper shape changer.
Oh, that's great.
And the two most recent, actually, I can't remember the name of the one that I just got, but right before that was Mark Allen Gunnell's Tales from the Typewriter, which is a little short story collection. But they all have that sort of B-movie, almost some of them original sci-fi movie kind of feel.
I love it. That's awesome.
So that's, like I said, there's 33 of those, and I've read 8 of those so far, maybe 8 or 10. And yeah, there's just certain publishers I try to pick up whatever. Encyclopocalypse now. I've been picking up all of their stuff. Can't wait for Janine Pipe's Dog Soldiers book, Sausages.
Oh yeah.
Making it Dog Soldiers. Yeah, so my TBR is huge. People just keep putting stuff out, and I know. Read it.
It's hard. I know, because I do the same thing, because I feel like every day I wake up and there's some new thing where I go, okay, there's another $6.
Yeah, I have to pick up Eric LaRocca's new one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really enjoyed Things Have Gotten Worse Since Last We Spoke.
Yeah.
And just in that story, just when I got to the point where someone actually says that, it was chilling.
Right. I know. I remember I went, oh, because by that point, it's beyond even worse. By that point, it's like, yeah, we've crossed a threshold a long time ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into the main event.
Yes.
So you chose as your favorite horror one of my favorites. It's in my top 3 werewolf movies of all time. It is Ginger Snaps.
Oh, I love it.
There we go. So first, can you give us a very quick synopsis of what this is about?
So, Ginger Snaps follows the tale of 2 high school teenage sisters as they are going through the experiences of being outcasts, but also interesting at the same time, in that they are death obsessed. And the eldest sister, Ginger, is experiencing her burgeoning into being a woman, not only in terms of her physicality, but also in terms of her menstrual cycle. And so one night they are out and about, and Ginger is attacked by a creature that neither sister necessarily sees very well, but is quickly understood to be a lycanthrope. And so as Ginger undergoes her transformation, Bridget, the younger sister, is having to deal with the fallout of her sister being this beastly creature. And how is she going to save her sister? How is she going to fix all of this? or is she going to fix it at all? And so that's really the sum of the movie. And I love this movie so much.
All right. And I should have said, folks, spoilers.
Oh yeah.
Going to be getting into this. So if you've never seen Ginger Snaps, first of all, what's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, again, you can pause this, go watch the movie, and then come back and listen to us talk about it. So why is this your choice?
I first saw this movie when I was in college. And so I did not come to it right when it first came out, because I know it came out in 2000. And so I can't remember if I first saw it on HBO, because I know HBO went through a period where they were replaying this pretty heavily on their late night movies. And so honestly, I think that that's how I saw it. But the thing that drew me in, because I probably saw this in 2003, 2004, I would have been 19 or 20 at that point. I had never seen a movie that captured female frustration and rage over strictly being female in such a way that I identified with. And not just that, but the sense of otherness that was captured in the movie, but then also that sense of always feeling like you are in someone's shadow, of that lack of independence, or you have two people who are trying to be independent of one another, but that they are so reliant or so codependent on each other. And I feel like girls in particular understand that relationship and how vicious and how loving it can be simultaneously. And not just that, of I appreciate it, it's funny in these weird places where you don't expect humor. And I just remember laughing hysterically, especially at the mom. And going, this is so cookie cutter suburban, like, bread of this is suburban bread that this mom is embodying, and I'm laughing so hard. And so it hit a lot of things that I don't think any horror movie had ever hit for me.
All right. So I do not remember why I first watched this movie. If, again, I don't know if I can't remember if I saw it on a list or somebody recommended it, or if I just came across it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when I would scour Best Buy, I would scour any place that had videos for sale, and I would grab anything that just caught my eye and buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I could afford to do that. And so it might even just be that I saw this cool looking movie and picked it up. And it's funny you mentioned HBO, because I rewatched this today and was watching some of the special features, and the director was talking about how they couldn't get it released in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Theatrically released. And they ended up, someone in New York with a theater asked if they could get a copy for like a midnight show. And I may have this out of order. And the director was like, you pay for shipping, I'll send you my copy and just show it. And so then some reviewer from like the New York Times was there and wrote, or from someplace, and wrote a huge article about it. And it took off, and HBO immediately, again, might have these things reversed, but HBO bought it, or whatever you would call it, and put it into heavy rotation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He said that was the thing, that's where it found its audience.
Mm-hmm.
Now if you had asked me before this morning when I rewatched this how the movie started, I would have said it started with the photos of the girls. I completely forgot about that sort of cold open, as I call it.
In the
little
sandbox.
kid in the sandbox. And the dog. I had completely forgotten that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because that scene is horrifying. Not just for what it is, but I think the thing that got me the most was when they flash back to the kid after the mom has picked up the leg. Like she's seen it, she's screaming. they flash back to that kid, and he has it on his mouth.
Yeah.
The blood on his mouth, and and that was so visceral. And I went, okay, we're in for a ride. Like, this is going to be in your face.
Well, that's the thing. The way they do it, it just starts. We've got the camera. First, we see, I think, the whole neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. It's so suburban.
And then it comes down into this yard, and the mom is raking leaves. The kid's playing in the sandbox. And it's sort of like shoulders up, or chest up, maybe. And we just sort of see him reach up and wipe his face, like, oh, I've got an itch. What? And he's left blood on his face.
Right.
It's like, what the hell? What is going on?
Right. Yeah. You have that absolute juxtaposition between this kind of like idyllic suburban afternoon with the mom. And the mom is so sweet. She like turns, she smiles at her kid. And then all of a sudden, it got Baxter. She's screaming. And so and I think that was such a powerful opening too, because that's exactly what these girls are railing against, is this freaking, the boredom of the suburban lifestyle of, out by 16, because this sucks. Of everything is the same. We all live in a house that looks the same. All the kids are the same. And I love that open. It's such a good one. Yeah.
And then we do get to we see Bridget first.
Yep.
Which again, I was surprised. I shouldn't be, because it is Bridget's movie.
Yeah.
Despite being called Ginger Snaps. Right. And so Emily Perkins is first in the credits. And I think people who haven't necessarily seen it would assume it would be Catherine Isabel. Because again, the movie's named after her character.
Right.
But it really is Bridget's movie, Emily Perkins, who is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Always love her. I love her on Supernatural. Her few appearances on there.
Right.
So good. And of course, Catherine Isabel's been on there as well.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so we see her, and it's like, okay, we've got this sort of goth-looking, dark girl with an extension cord and a can of gasoline, I think, and she's carrying some other stuff, a chainsaw or drill, something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Power tool. It's like, who is this, and what is going on?
Right, absolutely. And then you're thrown into that immediate of, you get the scene with Ginger with that butcher knife, just playing at that. And so you immediately establish these sisters as Ginger is clearly the leader, but that there's such a deep tie between them. And then that obsession with death, which is so beautifully contrasted at the end when Bridget gives her final fuck you, and she's like, no, I want to live. And so to have that set up so clearly and so vividly at the beginning, and then you have that great montage of all of the pictures of them doing this really messed up shit.
They could be in Hollywood making horror movies.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
The first one with Ginger impaled on the fence,
right,
looks amazing.
Right, and I love that too, because they spend so much time on that, and you think about like, what does that say? Your picket fence, typical Americana, and here she is impaled on it of and you get that, you have that same image that happens in what is it? Oh God, the Virgin Suicides, right, where the girl jumps and she falls on the fence, and it's very much that kind of middle finger to the American lifestyle, the white picket fence, the house, all of that. And I love that teacher's reaction.
Yes. I am disgusted.
I am disgusted. And then those creepy boys. Let's rewind and watch Ginger's scenes again.
Yeah. So yeah, it turns out that these wonderful photos, are for some sort of class project, apparently.
Right. Life in Bailey Downs.
And then, so they're sent to the counselor's office. But then we get them out on the field hockey.
Right.
Field. And then we really kind of meet the creepy boys and the bitchy girls.
Right.
And I I feel safe saying this since we're talking about a movie. Never wanted to see a teenage girl get punched in the face more than
No
whatever
kidding.
the hell her name was.
Trina or something like that.
Yeah.
It's very typical, like late 90s bitch name.
Yeah.
Trina.
It's like, I can't wait for her to get her comeuppance.
Oh, right. Well, and that's the thing
Not
that's
quite her ultimate comeuppance, but
that's the thing that really stinks too, is that it was one of those things where and I feel that this is where the writers of the film really excelled, because they're showing that external male influence, right? Like that external male gaze that is then almost puppeteering the way that these girls interact with one another. And almost how stupid it is. Because if you think about it, Trina has no reason to give a shit what either of the Fitzgerald sisters are up to.
right.
Outside of the fact that now all of a sudden you have one of them who is training his attention on Ginger. She doesn't, like, what does she care otherwise? And then because of that, and because of that notice, that's why she was like, okay, well, what do you think about this one? And then they start talking, and then they're overheard. And so it's this chain of events that's really kicked off by, okay, now you're attractive, and now you have a gaze put upon you, and now you're worthy of being competition, and now you're worthy of being, jealous of. And up until that point, yeah. And so it's interesting to watch that kind of trickle all the way down, because otherwise, who cares?
Yeah. And I love, and we can jump around because that's what I'm about to do. I do have to look at IMDb here just to double check someone's name. And actually, let's double check Trina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trina, hot for Sam, the drug dealer.
Right.
And I love the part later in the movie when he comes to the field and she's like, oh, hey. And he calls Bridget's name.
Right. Because he never cared to begin with.
Yeah.
It was all kind of just mental interpretation and mental games. But I that part makes me laugh so hard.
And that guy, thank goodness for IMDb, because I'm watching that movie and I'm like, I know that guy, not just from this, which I've seen multiple times, but I know that guy. So I had to look him up, and he's the goth guy from Final Destination 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay.
And as soon as I saw that he was in Final Destination 3, I'm like, I know exactly who he is, and I know exactly how he dies.
Right. And that's what I love about IMDb, is because you do the thing where you're like, I know you were in something else. And then you can piece it all together.
Yes. And he was great. He's a great character, I think. Because he's not after anybody. He's not. It is a little sad for Bridget when he says, I don't see you that way.
Right.
I mean, it's a good thing that he says that. Since I don't know if they ever established his age, but he's not in high school. So
no, clearly not.
Definitely older. And you can see the slight disappointment on her face, as much as she might protest. But I think he's a good guy all the way through.
And it really, I think out of all of the deaths in the movie, his hits me the hardest.
Yeah.
And probably even more so. Oh gosh, I can't believe I'm about to say, probably even more so than Ginger's question mark at the very end, just because you can almost feel that building of that there is going to be this inevitable thing at the very end, whereas his is almost completely innocent of, he truly is there, he's trying to help.
Yes.
The entire time. And I remember when she's pretending to eat that blood, and she looks at her and says, I can't do it. And that just
right in the throat.
Right. It hurts. That one hurts.
So we, going back now.
Yes.
We meet, so we've met Ginger and Bridget. We've met their foils at school and everything. Then we meet the parents, Mimi Rogers as their mother. fantastic. And we learned that they're 2 to 3 years late, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. Again, I don't know these things personally, but 2 to 3 years late, starting their periods, and they are really bitchy to their mother,
right?
And
I in rewatching today, I've never felt sympathy for the mom until today. Where I went, what? She's so nice. Why are they so mean to her? And I think that's probably because I am a mom now, but I think it's, and honestly, I can't help but think that it's any other reason than that she is just, she's everything they don't want to be.
Yeah.
She's living the, the suburban mom lifestyle. She's kind of clueless. She is trying real hard to be the cool mom, and it's just not working out. And so, but I felt bad for
till the end.
Till the end, right? Where she was like, I'll burn this bitch down.
Yeah.
Whatever it needs to do. I love it. And I wrote this down because in the scene when we first meet her, I laughed so hard because Ginger is, rubbing her back.
Right.
Rubbing her back and saying, "Oh, my back hurts." And her mom immediately,
yeah.
Do you think it's cramps?
Yeah. Is it cramps? Is
it
wearing your back?
Right. And she casts, and I think so many women do this to other women, of your period, your menstruation, as this magical thing. It's not fucking magical, people. It's awful. And that is that, you get a cake for it, and you're becoming a woman. And
I noticed, and I have to assume that this is completely intentional, because pretty much everything in a movie when it's made is. But I think this is the first time I noticed that the cake that she brings out, and then later when she's giving a piece of, I think, a different cake to Bridget, both are covered in sticky, drippy red icing or glaze.
Yeah, there's like a weird like strawberry happening.
When she brought the full cake out because it's you're having your period, I'm like, is that really what you want to be serving for this? Something covered in this dripping sticky red glaze?
Right. And there's just there's so many of these kind of like small call outs that are so realistic, because and realistic in a way that they are cast as comedic because they are realistic. So like the dad in the very first one, when the mom brings it up, goes, "Pam, we're eating."
Yeah.
And if it's like, for a woman, it's supposed to be this magical time, but for everyone else, it's disgusting. Or of what was it that when they're in the bathroom, of Ginger and Bridget are in the bathroom, and Ginger is like, there's something else is wrong other than you just being female. Of that, to be female it's wrong, especially as you're going through this change. It's wrong, and it's all that otherness of, and well, what better way to be wrong than to be a werewolf? So.
Excuse me. And the mother has no problem in front of the kid. She's like, your father and I are going to counseling tonight.
Right. Because clearly they're not on the same page ever.
Yeah. So Bridget and Ginger have gone out while their parents are counseling.
Right.
To get a little revenge.
Oh yeah.
On Trina.
They're gonna get Trina.
And they find a dead dog. So we know there's been a series of dead animals, dead dogs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they find one, and Ginger's all excited. She's like, "Ooh, we can use that. We can leave a body.
We can use it." Right.
Because of course, the plan, for those who haven't seen it, and why not, they're going to kidnap Trina's dog and make her think that her dog was killed. And now they have a dead dog they can leave and really sell that prank. And this is when they're attacked. When Ginger is attacked.
Right.
Horrifying scene.
It's very scary. For up until this point, everything has been very tongue-in-cheek, almost very sardonic and sarcastic. And then all of a sudden you get the scene and it is frightening. Because not just because of And I know, like, because I remember reading in the trivia that all of the effects are there's no what's the word I'm looking for?
CGI. It's all
CGI. Thank you. It's all practical effects, which I mean, like, kudos to the director for making that choice because that's difficult to do. And you don't see much of the creature that's attacking them, but what's scary is the desperation between these two, especially of Bridget trying to save her sister from this thing. And it is, and you have those camera pans, and it's intense.
Yeah, very violent scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the things I noticed is, so they Ginger's attacked, they kind of fight it off, they're running. They run out into the street, and Sam, the drug dealer, slams into it with his van.
Mm-hmm.
They run off. We're going to come back to Sam in a second, but they get back to the house, and now these girls that are very dark, they're all about death.
Right.
They're very bitchy to their mother. But when they run into the house, the first thing they do is call out for their mother.
Or their mom. And it is a very interesting choice because that lets you know, it's like, how much of this is affectation, how much of it is real.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's the great thing about being a teenager. You get to try that stuff on with very little consequence. You're still safe, as long as if you have a family who cares about you, fortunately, which it seems as if they do. But they get to try these roles on. But yeah, you're right. Like that first second, they're calling for their mom.
Yeah. So Sam hits whatever this thing is, and we still haven't seen it clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And he's come around outside his van, and he's come around, and we just see parts. And I love, I don't know if it's a paw or whatever that's just sort of twitching in the foreground. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. And then they pretty quickly jump into, so the girls have gotten home, their parents are still at counseling,
mm-hmm.
and it's mere moments before Ginger is already healing.
Right.
And feeling better. And Bridget's like, that's not natural.
Right. And that's what's interesting too, is that it's Bridget who is the one who is very hyper aware of exactly what is happening. Because you would imagine that if Ginger's the one who's experiencing it, to be like, something's wrong. But it's the sister who is in the shadow, quote unquote, who is immediately on it of lycanthrope. Something ain't right.
Yes. And I do think it's interesting that I think they pretty clearly established at the beginning that they were equals.
Mm-hmm.
They love each other. It's the two of them against the world. But it's not that long before we see that Ginger is, if not the alpha, trying to be the alpha.
Mm-hmm.
And so she heals up, and all of a sudden she's all sexified.
Right. You get those great scenes with her walking into the school, with her makeover and her little white streaks, and taking the jacket off finally. And oh yeah, it's funny to think about, puberty as, but they call it that, if you're becoming a woman, you got your period, and that's your literal puberty, is with that transition. And that delay, because they hadn't gotten it for 2 to 3 years, so frequently girls will get their period before there's any kind of physical change in their bodies, whereas for her, physical change has already happened.
Yes.
That's been there, that's been under the coat. But now that it's the become a woman, now you can shed the coat, and there it is, and that's what sets her apart. They do some really interesting things in playing with that idea of the change for young girls.
They now it's after the attack that she actually has her first period, right?
Right. I think I want to say that she has the attack. She heals. They go to school the next day, and she's still complaining about her back, but that they have, and it's a lot. Like it's a lot. They're in the bathroom, and it drips. Or no, she gets it right before the wolf attacks her.
Oh, that's
Because
right,
it's on her
because
knee, and she says you're bleeding.
that's right. She thinks it's from the dog, the dead dog
Right.
they were trying to pick up. And she says, "Yeah, you got some on you." And she's like, "That's
That's not it.
not it."
That's yeah, and which makes you wonder, is that the thing that drew?
Well, Bridget does say, I think, at one point that, well, bears will attack
Is
a
that
menstruating woman.
That's right. Of the and which I mean, if you really want to think about like victimhood too, of whose fault is it? Is it that there's a monster out there, or is it Ginger because she was bleeding? But
It's always a woman's fault.
it's always the woman's fault, no matter what. Like, you got attacked because you shouldn't have been out there at night. You shouldn't have had your period. Of but I know that the next day at school, they go to school the next day, and that's the scene where Bridget is really pushing. She's like, something's wrong. This isn't normal. You're healing abnormally fast. She's got the fur, right,
The hair
popping out.
coming out of her scratches.
Yeah, the hair coming out of her scratches. She's like, that's fucked, man. I can't have hair coming out of my body. That's puberty, right? I can't
Right.
have hair coming out of my body. But then they go to the is it the guidance counselor or the nurse?
I I'm not I assume nurse or maybe health teacher.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
or
because she's
someone.
bleeding on the floor in the bathroom.
Right.
And then we cut to that scene, which is hilarious.
I love it. She's like, that's normal.
Yeah. You're gonna notice some changes, some hair. She's like, you do not know.
No. And they did such a good job of really playing on the realness of that moment, but then also that kind of like dismissal that happens, I think, and I talk about this in Such a Pretty Smile too, that dismissal of female problems of, oh, that's normal. Yeah, you're gonna have some blood and it's gonna look like this, and yeah, you're gonna have some pain and it's gonna look like this. And she's literally trying to tell her, no, this is not right.
Well, we get a very detailed description of
Oh
what
yeah.
happens.
Very honestly, shockingly detailed, considering because you don't know, I don't think even girls get that level. If you take a health class, you don't get that level of description, and so it's like almost useful for some people.
And then it ends with, it's got that nice little tag at the end. Now you can get pregnant and get STDs, so make sure you use a
Play
condom.
safe. And then there's a scene too of, and I don't know if this happens before or after that scene in the nurse's office, but where Bridget goes, or they go to the store. I think this is the next scene. They
Mm-hmm.
go to the store to buy pads, and Bridget is staring up at this mountainous wall of just every kind of feminine product you can imagine. It almost looks like it's going to swallow her. And goes, oh, look, this one comes with a calendar.
Yes.
And then she uses the calendar later. I love that, because it is, if it's this overwhelming force in your life where
Well,
you
now,
feel
someone
swallowed by it.
in the special features that I was watching, someone did say, they're like, yes, we do in Canada, we do have those walls of tampons.
Right. It's insane, but makes sense.
Um, yeah, so now we've got Ginger is changing, she's becoming a woman.
Right.
She's suddenly hooked up with the douchebag.
Oh gosh, this guy.
Why? She couldn't have made a better choice. That guy
It
was
yeah, of it's in that whole section of her really burgeoning into her sexuality, of it's, golly, if it's commentary, I think, on what happens to almost every girl, where it's like, yes, own your sexuality, but please not with this idiot.
yeah.
Of because it's that aggressiveness. And even after, so you get this great moment where she is very clearly coming into her own in terms of being a sexual being. And she is actively seeking this guy. I think his name's Jason, very typical white guy name, something like that.
Be Jason, yes.
Jason,
checking my
yeah.
IMDb.
But and Bridget is very confused and brings up several times, if you're different, you're changing, you're smoking weed in the backs of van with weird boys, you're actively seeking this out, all of these things. And she gets into this situation where it's like there is definitely clear ownership. And I love that part too, where she gets into the car with Jason and they're going to go off and do whatever it is that they're going to do, and Bridget goes, she's ovulating.
Yeah.
And so there's all these like little small nods to things that girls actually have to worry about, of can't do that. You get, that's why the calendar is important, not just for tracking when you're going to become a werewolf, but also make sure you don't get pregnant. And the biggest, and this may be jumping forward a little bit, and I'm sorry, but
that's fine. We can do whatever.
When Ginger infects Jason, right? Because she had unprotected sex with him, which is its own thing you could crack open if you really wanted to. She was like, yeah. Because Bridget later asks her, did you wear protection? She says no. She was like, well, you infected him. You made him a werewolf. And so there's that. But he is so much more aggressive, like quickly, where Ginger is more confused for a little bit of something's not right. It takes her a while to get into this feels good, I like this. Whereas Jason almost immediately is using it to be aggressive and gross. There's that scene with the kid in the freaking Dalmatian costume.
Yeah.
Where he's torturing this little kid.
Is he going to eat him?
Right. It's like, and it took him no time at all. And it was just interesting to see that difference between how long it took Ginger to get there as opposed to him, where it was like so fast.
Excuse me. And I like the scene in the car. Ginger's the aggressor.
Yes.
He's telling her to, hey, slow down.
Slow down.
And then he says, who's the guy here? Or who's the man? Who's whatever? And that pisses her. Who's the man? Who's the man?
Right.
And she just slams him down on that car seat and takes what she wants, basically, while her spine is undulating.
Right, absolutely.
I think this is the only plot hole in the whole movie. There's no way he wasn't grabbing her ass and he would have noticed the tail.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would have definitely noticed that tail, because that tail is pretty pronounced by that point. Yeah, because she starts growing her tail, and I mean, you want to talk about phallic? That thing is.
Other than that, it's a perfect movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Only plot hole. Yeah. So going back again a little bit, Sam shows up at the school, and with the damage to the van. And Bridget says something to him, and he says the word lycanthrope. And she's like, yeah, I know what a werewolf is.
Like, I'm not an idiot.
She, one of the cool things, she always is carrying the Polaroid around. And she was using it to try to fight off the attack on Ginger, and got a close-up picture, which she had to pry out. That was really cool. Close-up picture of its eye and a little bit of the snout. And so then there's this confrontation by the van where Ginger kicks the dog, and things get dropped, and Sam gets a hold of that picture.
Right.
And so now he actively is seeking out Bridget
to figure out, like, what the hell is going on here?
What is going on? And she very clearly doesn't know what to do with any type of male attention. And again, we've said he has no untoward attention toward her. That was an awkward sentence. But she's still, he just wants to know what's going on, and she's still very, very awkward at first.
At first.
And she tells him that she's the one that got bit, and she's the one that's changing. So she never betrays Ginger, despite what Ginger thinks.
Right. And that was all the more heartbreaking to me, is that she takes that on herself. Because at this point, I mean, we're believing in werewolves, for fuck's sake, right? Like, at this point, it's negligible of who it is and who it isn't. But that she's so devoted to this idea of not betraying her sister, no matter what, even if it's to save her life. That I just remember when she was like, well, it's me. And I went, oh, God. Man, you are really in it. And the mom brings that up constantly. You don't have to follow her around. She can do her own thing. You can do your own thing. And it's just that dynamic is so.
Yeah. And then and there's the point where Ginger has become so angry, and she says to Brit, she's like, there is Ginger still doesn't want to believe it, despite the hair, the tail, the teeth, the claws,
the eating of the dog of Norman.
Yes. And she says, there is a monster here, and it has green eyes.
Right.
And it's like, oh, come on, you're supposed to be so close.
I know. And that's the thing that kills me, because it's like, she's clearly trying to help you, and she's trying so hard. But I think that there is reality in relationships in that, of the way you perceive things, as especially because they do have an age difference. I think if they had been twins, I think it would have been different. But I think that younger, older dynamic helps that along a little bit. It's a heartbreaker.
And even though, they have that oath at the beginning, what is it, dead at 16 or out of the scene?
Out of the scene.
and Bridget does point, she's like, we just said that when we were 8. And so now at this point, as much as they still believe they're the best of friends, well, Bridget still wants that. Ginger, of course, unfortunately, is going off the deep end. But yeah, Bridget it's still the two of us against the world. And Ginger's just not there for it, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because she tries, and that's where we get into the kind of the next piece is Bridget really starts to try everything that she can, right? She starts talking with Sam. How do you cure it if it's a problem? And that's what he says, you have a problem, and that if there's a solution to every problem, and if it's biology, I got it, because he's a small-time drug dealer. He knows plants. So
he's a chemist.
And so we start with the silver, right? She's like, my only solution is a silver bullet through the head. And he said, well, it purifies the blood. And then you have that.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, he says, yeah, I killed him with my van. Don't think we need silver.
Right. I don't think we need silver. Let's be logical here, right? And so you have this, it's a sad, and that's the thing that I think it really hits me so hard with this movie, is like, there's layers of, there is a sadness in this conversation that happens between Bridget and Ginger when she's piercing her belly button with this silver belly button ring. And she's asking her about this interaction that she had with Jason, because this is right after she comes in, she's throwing up the blood, and she's eating the dog, and all of that. And Ginger kind of waxes poetic about this experience of losing her virginity. She was in control. She took it. But she was like, there's some flailing around and some squelching, and that's it.
Yeah.
Of that it's not what she wanted it to be, even though she had the power in that situation. And that kind of disappointment.
And the fact that she says he's going to go to school
and
be a hero because he got laid. I'm just the lay.
I'm a freak. What she said, freak mutant lay.
Yeah.
And so you get to see that disparity laid out pretty clearly. And the fact that she's aware of it too is even all the more sad.
Which is that's been one of the double standards of my entire life that I've never understood. It's insanity. And the illogic of it, the fact that, okay, this guy's getting tail. He's so great. Look at all the women he's sleeping with. But look at all the women he's sleeping with. What a bunch of whores.
Right.
But he can't get tail. He can't get laid without someone to lay. And vice versa, of course. But it's never been that way. It's always the guy is the stud, the hero. The girl just gave it up.
Right.
She's trash.
Oh, yeah.
And I've never understood that.
Oh, yeah. It's an insane, and you would think, one would hope that difference is becoming better, but shockingly it really isn't. Because you even see him at school the next day when they're all out on the again on that field hockey. They're all out on the field, and here comes Jason wandering up, and he's beat all to hell.
Yeah.
And, they're all high-fiving him and everything. And then I think probably within the next couple minutes, that's when they're like, man, Sam pulls up to talk to Bridget. It's like, man, those Fitzgerald sisters are really getting around. And it's like, well, wait, how do you hold those two things in the same hands of you just like high-fived your dude for, hooking up with Ginger or whatever. And then you turn around and.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he does. Well, Jason gets a little.
He gets his.
Well, what are you having your period?
Right, and he's pissing blood,
and then later when he's telling Bruce, my pen broke, my red pen. But yeah, so this is when Sam comes up, and Trina thinks he's there to see her, and he's like, "Hey, Bridget," and then this is when she gets her first comeuppance. The one I think, for lack of a better way to put, again, talking about fictional people here, the one I think she deserves.
Yes.
Because she, once again on the field hockey, or on the field, she lays into Bridget, and this time Ginger just beats the crap out of her.
Oh, yeah. Probably what should have happened the first time, but yeah. For sure.
So, yeah, love to see that. But then later, I don't think she deserves what happens to her.
Absolutely not. And honestly, I don't think that Ginger really necessarily intended for what was going to be happening. I think that was almost like, how like a cat plays with its food before they eat it.
Yes.
I think that was more the intention than it was like, oh shit, we might have accidentally gotten in a little further than we intended. But now that that's happened, let's just let the reins off and no holds barred.
So Trina comes to Bridget and says, "Give me my dog back.
I know you have it."
So, but they never tell us what actually happened to her dog.
And that was another point where I went, wait a second, what did happen to the dog? Because I know she kicks it.
Yes.
I know Ginger kicked the dog, but then after that, we don't see anything else with the dog. They go home, and then all of a sudden she's there. It's like, where's the dog? And so I went, did Ginger go off and kind of do her own thing without letting Bridget know? Because that's the first time that would have happened. And then at that point, they grab Trina, or Ginger grabs Trina and brings her in. She's toying with her.
And this is the point where I have the tiniest bit of sympathy for her, for Trina. And I actually, a lot of it has to do with the fact that she's looking for her dog. Because again, she might be a horrible person at school, but she obviously cares about this dog.
Right. And then also the other point where I feel a little bit of sympathy for Trina is when she's looking at Bridget and she says, I can't remember how she brings up Sam, but she tells her, she said, he's a cherry hound. Yeah. He doesn't want you for anything other than the fact that you're a virgin. Don't let him do it again. I think she says something to that effect of like, don't let him do it again. And that's where I felt a moment where I went, was this girl just used?
Yeah.
And we're seeing, and whether she thought there would be more, or whether she was under a different impression, or whatever that relationship was, because I mean, we only see a good side of Sam. We don't see him being an asshole, really. Where maybe something was misconstrued, but it definitely had a moment where I went, man, that is tough.
See, I didn't catch that.
Mm-hmm. It's a very brief, but little moment.
I don't know why. I find it very funny when Ginger is holding Trina and is just quiet, tapping her forehead, whatever she's saying. Stop it. Just tapping her forehead.
Oh yeah. But then, I mean, Trina turns the tables and pulls that knife out. And that's when all, everything goes bad. And I think that is the point at which we cross a threshold with Ginger, where it's like we've reached a point of no return now, because we've tried the silver. They have, I think at this point, have they had the monk's hood discovery?
They've talked about the monk's hood, but it only blooms in spring.
That's right.
I don't know if Bridget has seen that her mother has some yet.
Has it. Right, because it's like, I want to say that they find the monk's hood shortly after they bury Trina.
I think so.
Because she goes, oh shit, because I think she's realizing, like, we're at a place of no return now with Ginger. We've got to find a thing, because, and I love that part where you have this great shot, and it's brutal when Trina her head hits that counter,
yeah,
because it's a full accidental death. She whips this knife out and she's backing up, and she slips in the milk because there's spilled milk on the floor. And then you get the shot. Oh God, that sound is just bad, but of the milk and the blood mixing.
That is one of my favorite shots in the entire movie. It is so beautiful.
Yes, it looks great, and it takes on this like pinkish. But then they realize their parents are coming home. And so Ginger jumps down into the blood, and they pretend that they're taking the pictures.
Yep.
And she's licking it, and she offers it to her dad. It's corn syrup. Do you want
corn syrup, Dad? You want a taste? And Mom is just, I told you no more of this in the house.
Right. 10 minutes. Clean it up.
Immaculate. 10 minutes. And then I'm going to go put the meat in the freezer.
Right.
I'll do it.
Because the box.
And then the way she distracts her is, Mom, what do guys want?
And then you get that great scene with like milk and cookies.
Mom is so happy that her daughters have finally asked her.
Right. That poor mother. Bless her heart. Oh my gosh.
And then when they're chipping her out of the freezer and the two fingers come off. And I think, is it this point where Bridget's like, are you thinking about eating her?
Yeah, and she was, that was exactly it. She was like, oh, gross. No, that would be like, so it definitely, it's gruesome, but there are just these really funny small moments. Yeah, because you end up with the fingers kind of left in the yard, and they bury her in the mom's, I guess it's is it a compost pile?
See, I thought that was their little playhouse.
Oh.
Because that's where, I believe, because isn't that where Bridget was with the candles, and where she was doing her, to get away from Ginger, that's where she was marking the calendar and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. So they bury Trina in there.
A shallow grave, very appropriate, as Ginger says.
Very, very shallow. Almost to the point where I'm like, y'all, come on now. Like, let's not be stupid.
Tip of her nose is still sticking up above the dirt. Right. Come on.
And I want to say it's at that point, when they discover, or when Bridget sees the monk's hood. Mm-hmm. They come back inside, and she sees that her mom has it, and of course she got it at a craft store. Of course she did. Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm realizing, I think that like that's all, like I think that like once we hit everything kind of like really quickly after that, right? Because she
takes it to Sam. they figure out how to synthesize it, and he's saying, "Don't
He
know
knows
what."
it's not her.
Yeah, we don't know what the dosages would be, and then yeah, he's like, you have to be careful when you give it to Ginger. It could kill her. And she's like, "What?" He's like, "I know it's not you."
Come on, it's not you. And then that's the point where she's on the way to give it to Ginger. And this is that classic kind of, it's almost like the Titanic, right? Like they get out of the water, they're back in the water. They get out of the water, they're back in the water. Where it's like, you have the cure, you give it to someone else. You have the cure, something else happens. Because that's when she encounters Jason attempting to torture some poor schoolboy in a Dalmatian costume because it's Halloween.
Of course.
Beautiful. I mean,
it
you
should
couldn't
always
have
be
asked.
Halloween, but
Beautiful. But and she accidentally gives it to him, and that's how she learns that the cure works.
And it works quickly too, apparently.
So quickly.
He didn't clear up, but he was like,
I have a class.
I gotta get
go.
to class.
It just takes off. And so at that point, hold on. He takes off. And then I can't remember. It's like the party is going to happen at the greenhouse.
Right. But Ginger, he takes off. Bridget goes to school.
That's right.
Goes to the counselor's office.
That's right.
And discovers that Ginger has killed the guy.
That's right.
Counselor.
Right.
Great effects there.
Because she comes in. That's right. She comes in. She's gone through further transformation. She's comes in and she shows her boobs to those guys.
Oh, that's and the counselor's like, my office.
And then she kills the counselor, and then she kills that janitor.
Yeah. So Bridget says, okay, we're just gonna have to wait till everybody leaves, and then we have to get rid of the body and clean all this up. So the only one in the building then is the little janitor guy, and she kills him, and she tells Bridget, I didn't like the way he looked at you. Which
that poor man never did anything.
Yeah, as he saves her from Jason.
Oh yeah, 100%.
At one point, Jason's got her in the supply closet, being very aggressive, and the janitor comes in and says, "What's going on?"
Right.
And we also get to see he's wounded. He stumbles around. And we see that he's healing.
Mm-hmm. You infected him.
And then she kills him.
Oh, yeah. And then we get the monologue from Ginger about why she loves this so much, why it feels so good. And to an extent, it's a great monologue because, I mean, she's not wrong.
Yeah.
Of course it feels good to do whatever the hell you want. Of course it feels good when you've spent your entire life being told you're a freak, you're, not wanted, you're different, you're worthless, whatever, to all of a sudden have this power to do anything and basically get away with it. And I think that is, when you come into puberty and you go through your change or whatever, there is power in that, but there's consequence, and the consequence isn't always necessarily what you think it's going to be, because with sexuality can come violence. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And I think that's probably a reality a lot of girls don't necessarily want to grapple with right at the front, but there's a reality behind it. And Ginger is fully embracing. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And oh well.
And we did, I believe, skip a whole scene.
Oh man.
Before Bridget gets the cure, Ginger has gone into the bathroom, and Bridget locks her in there. Puts that over the door, and everything Bridget is doing is to help her sister, and everything Bridget is doing, Ginger sees as a betrayal. She's, you've locked me in here. That's not what loving sisterly people do. Even though she's doing it to save her, Ginger just can't, at this point anyway, can't seem to grasp it.
Right.
That she's trying to help. But then I think at this point she doesn't think she needs help.
Because there has been a full transition over into this great, what she thinks is wonderful. That full, unfettered, if you want to look at kind of like the full unfettered id, right? That primal part of yourself that you've finally been able to let out because polite society says you can't do that. And she's finally able to do that. And yeah, and I remember in watching the scene of her Ginger locked in the bathroom, I felt really bad for Ginger.
Mm-hmm.
Because you hear it in her voice as she's she's basically in her werewolf form, tearing at the walls, and just that ache of realizing that she's been sold out because her sister's trying to save her and maybe she doesn't want to be saved anymore. But then my favorite part is when, so they're having this because it's Halloween, they're having this party at the greenhouse and Sam is there. And Bridget is realizing she's got to get more monk's hood, because she's used up this dose on Jason or whatever. And Ginger breaks out of the bathroom. And this is where I really enjoyed the special effects, because Ginger goes to walk into the greenhouse and she's in this outfit, but they've done almost like a chest plate on her where she has a dog torso.
Yeah.
And it's like
her hair is completely white.
Yeah.
Her face has changed. They didn't go with, at this point anyway, the traditional snout kind of thing you would expect, but there is a change in the ridge,
eye
the eyes,
yeah,
and a little bit of the nose shape and everything. But yeah, it's that full torso look.
It's really unsettling because I just went, it put me in mind of, like was it the mythology of how Rome began with the teated mother, or whatever. And I just was like, wow, that's a really interesting choice. But yeah, she comes in there to fuck shit up.
Yes.
and she does.
And she tries to seduce Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is something I think that, for me at least, twisted expectations, maybe twisted tropes, because one, Sam completely rejects her.
Mm-hmm.
There is no point where he gives in at all. He's constantly saying no. And then, which typically I think you would see him, he would give in for at least a little bit. He'd start kissing back and then stop. No. But the entire time he's no, get off of me. And then the other thing is that I would expect is when Bridget shows up, there would be a misunderstanding and you're trying to seduce the guy that you think I like, and you tried to fuck my sister, but that's never there.
Right.
Which I think which I like. I like having those expectations subverted. More importantly, perhaps, at this point, though, their mother has
discovered the fingers.
The dad found the fingers. And she says, "Oh, that's just the girls and their photography stuff." But she puts them in some Tupperware and puts them in the freezer or in the fridge. And then she digs up the body.
Yep.
And what does she do? She's going to protect her daughters.
Her babies.
This is kind of the mother's hero moment.
Oh, I love it. I remember watching it for the first time. And when the mom went into the little hut thing and started to dig, I had a full expectation of what was going to happen. The mom's going to find it. She's going to scream. She's going to freak out. She's going to call the cops, whatever. No, she goes into full mama bear mode.
Yes.
And is like, get in the van. I'm going to light this bitch on fire.
Yeah. We're going to get your sister.
We're
going to burn down the house.
We'll burn down the house. What about your dad? I don't care. He doesn't appreciate anything I do anyway.
He wouldn't understand.
He wouldn't understand. And I just have so much deep appreciation for the mom in that moment. And even after Bridget tells her, stay in the van, she waits there for a little bit and she's like, no, she gets out. She goes to get her daughters.
And that's another subversion of the tropes.
Mm-hmm.
You expect it to go one way, and she's completely, I'm protecting my children.
Oh, absolutely. And I love it. I loved that moment more than anything.
So Bridget goes into the greenhouse. She confronts Ginger and Sam. Sam gets his arm busted.
Oh, yeah.
And Bridget infects herself.
Yes.
Cuts her
as this
palm.
like blood pact.
Cuts Ginger's. I keep transposing the name.
Yeah.
Which is, we obviously saw very early in the movie that they have had a blood pact before. We see the scars, matching scars on their palms. And now she's infected. And I love that she's taking Ginger out of the greenhouse. They're going to take off. And Sam, thinking he's the hero, cracks Ginger in the head with a shovel.
Bridget, what are you doing?
What are you doing? I have more monks hood at home. I was going to go give her the cure. He's like, I didn't know that. I'm trying to help.
Right. It's this insertion of someone who really doesn't need to be there, but is just trying his damnedest to be a help.
But he's simply trying to help this entire time. We don't know exactly what may or may not have happened with Trina, but from everything we've actually seen, he's not trying to get some from anybody.
Right.
He's selling pot.
Right. Yeah.
And he's actually trying to be helpful.
Right. Absolutely.
And where does he end up?
Oh, golly.
Sam.
Yeah, poor Sam. Yeah. At this point, I mean, they load Ginger into the back of his van and they head back to the house. And Ginger is somewhat incapacitated in the back. And they get back. And they're like, okay, we got the monk's hood. We're gonna get this going. And they go out to get Ginger. And everything you thought was gonna happen was gonna happen.
Full transformation.
And it is interesting. I will say, this is probably the only part of the movie that I'm less crazy about than the rest of it. The effects of the full werewolf, I'm a little medium on. I do like that it's not a hairy werewolf. I thought that was an interesting choice.
Well, in the special features, they talk about, and the first thing that I watched was a documentary type, not full length, but a thing that was filmed in 2014, I think is when they mentioned that this particular thing was filmed. And they talked about how, making the choice not to have it be a hairy werewolf, not to have it be the typical creature that you expect to see. And it's a guy in a suit with extensions for his hands and feet to give him those long legs. There is some puppetry involved. So yeah, it's not the greatest looking, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's a low budget practical effects film. They did say the guy, I think it was the guy that designed the werewolf, said that the director shot so much footage of it.
Oh wow.
Tons and tons of footage. And he said, "You're not going to use why are you shooting all this footage? You're not going to use it." And the director was like, yeah, I'm going to use it. And then, of course, when they did the editing, he's like, yeah, they cut out like 90% of any shot of the werewolf. And then it cuts to the director talking about it. And he's like, yeah, I overshot it. I shot way too much. It was better cutting most of that out.
Yeah, but I did like that they went with a different look. And so I appreciated that, because it wasn't what you expected. Because like you think about most werewolf movies up until this point anyway, up until this movie came out, all the werewolf transformations were always men. Or I'm trying to think
well, the Howling.
Okay. And so, or at least typically I'll say, you didn't see female werewolf transformations. It was a typically male thing. And so to just see it look a little different was nice. But yeah, once that full transformation happens, I mean, Ginger's gone. Ginger is not here.
Yes.
And so you have this great chase scene through the house where they are they hide in the, is it the pantry?
Sam and Bridget hide in the pantry, and that's where they make the serum.
And cook it up. Yeah.
They cook up the serum.
And you still have a laugh because she's using the soup ladle.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's sanitary. And she's like, I don't think it matters.
But then, poor Sam. gets, they come up with a plan. You're going to do this. I'm going to do that. Let's do the. As soon as he opens the door,
Done.
yanked away, and he's basically just being mauled up against the door. Bridget can't get out.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And then you have isn't it a moment where she sees the blood like seep under the door?
Yep.
It's just, oh gosh, that's tough.
And then when she finally does get out, and I think she finds the syringe at that point is still lying on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
She picks it up, follows the blood trail. At one point, slips and drops it, so it's under the stairs.
Under the stairs. That scene is so tense.
And she finds Sam leaning up against the wall, bleeding out, but possibly healing.
Right. Because that's where I thought it was going. I was like, oh, God.
Yeah. And then you have, fully transformed Ginger on one side of him. Bridget, who is transforming, on the other side. And I I didn't know if she was eating the blood to trick Ginger, or if she was already feeling those pangs.
Right.
And doing it, but she ends up spitting it up.
Right. And I like that they left that open for interpretation, where there isn't a hard answer either way, because I like to think this is just me, but I like to think she is actually transforming a bit and is having to actively fight it off and reject it as an option.
Yeah. So she spits it up. She says, "I can't do it," and that's when Ginger just tears out poor Sam's throat, and the chase begins.
Final showdown.
She's got to get that vial or that syringe, and these cramped spaces, and she kicks through a wall, and all sorts of great stuff and she grabs a knife from the drawer, the knife that Ginger was trying to use to cut her tail off.
Yes. Because that comes earlier.
Bridget took from her and put in the drawer. So now she's got the syringe in one hand, the knife in the other.
And they're back in their bedroom.
Back in the bedroom. And I think I like the way it's written. Her lines, Bridget says, "I don't want to die down here," or "I don't want to die in the basement," followed by just, "I don't want to die."
I don't want to die.
Which is now much more specific than, I don't want to die in the basement, but then I don't want to die. I think it's at all is implied at that point.
Right. Yeah, that there is this gradual realization that dawns on her in these moments of facing what is likely or could be an actual physical death, and that realization of, because it is interesting what they do in this movie in regards to the romanticization and glamorization of death. And I think that that's a very teenager thing, it's a very teenage thing to kind of glamorize, this is so sad, and I wish it wasn't like this, but to glamorize suicide. And it's tragic. And that if you want to talk about growing up, or you want to talk about puberty or coming into your adulthood, her realization at the end of "I don't want to die" is a huge step into actual adulthood, as opposed to the physicality that maybe Ginger underwent. But that final showdown between them, because it's hard to, it's accidental.
Well, and it's sort of a Lady and the Tiger kind of thing, where Ginger leaps on top of Bridget. Obviously something has happened. Is it the knife? Is it the syringe? Is it the cure? Or is it death? And then it turns out it's the knife.
Yeah. And then you get that she backs away, and you get a slow pan kind of over the body, and then you see it lodged in the chest. And at this point, Bridget is across the room, just taking it all in, and I think coming to the realization of what it is that's happened. And then that final moment, so sad, because you realize what's going to happen because of the breathing. Does the breathing start to slow?
Well, I mean, right off the bat, we're essentially watching an animal die, which is sad.
Ragged.
Yeah, and then so Bridget crawls over and she's crying, and at this point all we're seeing is a bit of the chest up and down, in and out breathing, and she puts her head down on it, and eventually it stops.
Yeah, and you kind of pan back just a bit, and then it goes black, and you just because then it leaves it open, right? Because you still have that vial of monkshood, and Bridget is still infected.
Yes.
And then you have the wonderful thing of that all of the movies came out. You got the next one, and then you got the prequel.
Prequel retelling?
Right.
Which I love both of
the same year, right?
They are separated by, let's see, so the first one is 2000.
Right.
The second one,
the second and then the third were both, I want to say 2004.
2004 is the third one. Where the heck is the second one listed? 2004. Yeah,
that they released them around the same time. But yeah, it's a incredibly sad ending.
Yes.
Just because you see that like it was like a fruitless fight through the entire thing. Bridget trying so hard to save her sister, and
Well, there were two things in the special features that I watched that they didn't get to do. Well, there's more, but there are two things I wanted to point out specifically. One, at the greenhouse, they said that initially Bridget and Ginger were going to fight, and Bridget was going to sustain a mortal wound.
Oh, wow.
She was going to fall off of from someplace and be impaled, and that's why she infects herself, to save her own life. But they couldn't, can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, it was going to cut from her lying there to her and her mother driving away with the house on fire in the background.
Oh, I would have loved. Oh, man.
But again, shows they didn't think.
Sure.
Okay. I know we've sort of taken up a lot of your time. So any final thoughts on Ginger Snaps?
If you haven't seen it, what are you waiting on? You should go see it.
Come on.
It's on Shudder. You can get it. It's easy to find.
And I love both of the sequels. I love that the second movie is directed by I believe the editor of the first one. And the third one is directed by the assistant director of the first one.
It's like a little happy family.
Kept it in the family. Second one has Tatiana Maslany when she was really young, an actress that I love. Can't wait to see her as She-Hulk. Okay, so anything that you want to plug as we...
You can find links to all of my stuff, links to short fiction, all of the books at my website. It's www.kristidemeester.com, and it's KristiDemeester.com. And so you can find Such a Pretty Smile there beneath everything that's underneath short fiction. If you like it, we always appreciate all authors a little review or a little, a rating, whatever. It helps immensely.
I'll have links in the description of the video. And okay, well, if you can just stick around for a moment while I do my outro. But thank you very much for being here. And
my pleasure.
Any chance for me to rewatch Ginger Snaps. So there you have it, folks. My special guest, Kristi DeMeester. As I said, we'll have links in the description below for where you can find her stuff. And please, if you folks have any comments or questions, put them in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. And we're finished here. So that's all we've got. Until next time, folks, read more books.